welcome back to Life Stories with me, Des Tong, and my guest, Albert Chapman. So we were talking before the break about you working with Sabbath.
Yep.
And you've been to Australia. So
yep.
what was the next move then?
Well, I came back, went to Rum Runner, and the band asked me to go with them full time. And
was this what, tour manager?
It started off like a sort of tour manager, then became business manager, and I was more involved in arranging interviews, TV interviews, work with the record companies, publishing companies, and running the tours. And we'd get on the road, and then I'd make sure, because then there was no mobile phones.
But what did we do without mobile phones?
I don't know. I haven't a clue. I can't use the new ones now. But there you go. But because there was all the pre stuff.
Yes.
You know, you go into a town, and then you're flying wherever. You get off the plane, go to the venue, sound check, back to the hotel.
Yeah.
Have dinner, then back to the venue. Then the next morning the same. So we had to do everything, pre-book everything.
Yeah.
So my job was then like pre-arranging everything. Like we'd get off a plane, go to do different interviews. Ozzy would go there, or Tony would go there, and Geezer there. And so it was all that pre-booking work, and there was a lot more to do than say there's no emails, there was no mobile phones. It was all done in the mornings or it's different hours, and because of time changes, arranging that.
Yeah.
Which was really good, and we had a lot of fun. A lot of parties, to say the least.
Yeah. But I mean, exciting times in those days.
Oh, it was great. I
mean, they are probably the biggest band to ever have come out of Birmingham, aren't they?
Yes, without a doubt. And we had some wonderful times. A few different incidents in clubs, and Ozzy rearranged the hotel without the management's consent. We flew over the one time, and I've still got the letter to this day. Dear Mr. Chapman, it was in Norfolk, Charleston, Virginia. Dear Mr. Chapman, we would like to welcome you and your band, Black Sabbath, to the Holiday Inn in Charleston. But we'd like to point out, on your last visit, there was, i.e., certain amounts of damage done, i.e., Bibles burnt in sinks, toilets blown up, etc., etc. We will not tolerate this sort of behaviour, but should you need any assistance, do not hesitate to call my assistant. So I phoned through and ordered more Bibles. and those are the sort of things that went on. And we'd be in a club, and then there'd be a bit of a row, and the boys like to have a little battle now and then. We were in Dusseldorf in Germany, and it was we were playing with a band called Streetwalkers. Roger Chapman, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
and it was one of the birthdays for them. I think it was Whitney, the drummer, and we went to this club after with the promoter, and he looked after us all. And then the time was getting on, and anyway, Chapman and Whitney had caused a bit of a problem, and they thought, because the English, we were all together, it was all down to us. Anyway, towards the end of the night, Ozzy was getting a bit of a problem, and they started giving him a slap. So we went and made sure it didn't continue that way.
Yeah.
And there was a bit of a scuffle. I got shot in the face. Which was, so we've gone outside to get away, and I've had to have a few words with some of these people who weren't very well. We just get into a taxi, and this guy come down the road, and he's got blood in his face, shouted something in German to the driver. Then the driver said, get out the car. So, with a gun. So I get out the car, and I said to Tony, I said, get the promoter. Thrown us into a cop car. So Tony jumped into, I thought it's taxi, but he jumped into a police car. And we all finished up in Dusseldorf jail on the night. But if you signed autographs, we were out the next morning.
Yeah. And no burnt Bibles?
No. No.
Right, so Sabbath, then, now correct me if I'm wrong, but then the first time I met you was at the glorious Elbow Room in Birmingham. How did you get into that?
I'd finished with Sabbath, and a friend of mine said the Elbow Room's for sale. Would you want to get involved? And to cut the story short, I did get involved. We had a look, And he'd been closed for about 18 months, because that had been a club since about 65, and he'd been closed for about 18 months. And so this Dave Postle himself, we refurbed it and reopened it, and we operated it like very, very strictly, because the area wasn't great. The people who used to come to Albert, they came from all over Birmingham, because on the north side of Birmingham there's no licences,
right?
Only the Belfry,
right? Yeah,
and the Elbow. So people believe the pubs, and all come to clubs. But then by then the times are changing. We get up the normal people coming to the club, plus, and the pubs are say 10:30. So by 11 o'clock we were getting busy. And it just went up and there. But I stayed involved with the music business. I was managing a band called Quartz. I got Tony Iommi to produce their first album. Right. And that went really well. But we never actually quite... Quartz were just on the verge. They went out with Rush, went out with the other bands as openers. But they had a great following, but it never really went that way. So I stayed involved with the music industry. Yeah. And I had a publishing company, which was through Warner Brothers. Yeah. Lethal,
because I
Lethal Music, if you remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's a good name.
Good name. Yeah. But you know, getting back to the Elbow, I mean, I was introduced to the Elbow. I think the first time I went there, it was after a Sad Cafe gig in Birmingham, and then a friend of mine, Sissy Stone, said, you know, well, we got to go down.
Sissy for years and years. You know.
We got to go down to see Big Albert, and it was one of those places where all the bands, like you were saying before, all the bands used to go. It was like, you know, on the way home from a gig, drop in for the Elbow for a drink. And you never knew you were going to bump into there, but you knew you were going to bump into somebody, didn't you?
There was always someone you knew. The Albert Room, it was more like a local pub than a club. It was more like, excuse me, it was more like your front room. It was like a club. It was still like a 60s club. Yeah. We never brought it forward with all the modern flashing lights and that. It was a watering hole. Yeah. Where we had some fabulous bands on.
You were saying Steve Winwood.
Steve Winwood, that was his first ever gig he played.
Yeah. And I always remember that UB40 were always in there.
They were always in there, yeah.
In fact, you know, when I said to Robin about, you know, I was coming down, because I remember meeting them there. And it's just one. And John Slater who was with BRMB, you know, he put a comment on Facebook the other week. So I'm sure he'll be watching this.
Failure to appear at the Albert Room will seriously damage your health. That was what John Slater put on BRMB.
Another thing you did as well, which Brother Beyond, you tour managed them, didn't you?
Yes, yeah. Well, what happened there, you see, because I got the publishing company and I was still managing a couple of bands, and I used to do a lot of work, pre-tour booking for EMI Records. Right. Brother Beyond was signed by EMI, and I'd done all these things with EMI, and they asked me if I'd go on tour with them, which is going like from heavy rock to the pop, you know what I mean? So instead of going around there like, you know, with these heavy rockers, then all of a sudden I'm going around with a bag of sweeties. But the Brother Beyond kids were good, and they were doing really well. Everything was going great, and it just fell apart. The band split up. Yeah. And it's a shame, because the chemistry of a lot of bands, it's the chemistry of the band unit together. Yeah. Individually, a lot of these people, I mean, what music they make, it's that chemistry of them all working together. Yes, and you understand that, because you've been in the business for a long time. Yeah. And that was a shame, but that was quite interesting. It was quite interesting.
So what are you doing now?
Not a lot.
No.
And I can't say nothing on the grounds it might incriminate me. No, I don't do a lot now. I've obviously finished with the clubs now. I was involved with Sense in Birmingham for a while in the arcade. You came there. That was a couple of years, but then you couldn't make it work over basically 2 nights a week, because there's that many places then. And where the clubs in those days were 10:30, pubs are finishing now later and later. So then I think, it's not worth going into town. Yeah. That's it, really. As far as the music now, I've said I'd never do it again. And now I've got a bit of involvement with a band called the Wholls.
I know the Wholls. Yeah.
Well, Guy Stanway managed
Stanway,
them.
yes.
Well, I used to manage Guy Stanway.
Right. Okay.
And we had a hit. He'd done a Gold Earring number.
Right.
And that was with EMI Records and all that was.
Right. Right. Albert, I could talk to you all day here.
Yeah. Well, I've
Time's
done
caught
really
up with
well.
us.
I've done really well.
You've done
I
absolutely
haven't
wonderful. Not one yellow card.
I know. Thank you. Nice
Well,
one, Des.
Thanks very much for coming in.
Pleasure, mate. Thank you very much.